Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As Monsignor said at the beginning of Mass, my name is Father Jim Quinlan. I was ordained almost 45 years ago in the Archdiocese of Chicago. And I ministered in that diocese for 34 years before beginning missionary work with Cross Catholic Outreach. I'm not the first cross priest that has been here at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. So first of all, I would like to thank Monsignor for the invitation to come back and share the mission of Cross, and say a thank you to those of you who supported the work of the Mission Church the last time a cross priest was here, because whether you realize it or not, you have probably saved thousands of lives. Cross Catholic Outreach is a fairly young Catholic charity, only about 20 years old. But during that time, they have supported missions in 28 countries. Places like Latin and Central America, the Caribbean islands, Asia, and 11 countries in Africa. And in those 28 countries, there are currently 285 individual missions that Cross supports. They do not set up the missions. They support the men and women, religious and lay, but we've been directed to assist through the Vatican Office of Cor Unum, which means one heart. It's the Holy Father's personal charities to the poorest of the poor of the developing world. So they would inform us of some mission or some missionary that is worthy of our attention. We make the assessment as to what is needed. We bring then that message to the people of God, to what we refer to as the donor parishes of the United States. Now, you've not been singled out. Whether you're big or small, rich or poor, it doesn't matter. We are all part of the donor churches. As part of our being called Catholic, as part of our baptismal promises, it's not something that we hold on to ourselves, we give it away. Marriage Encounter has a wonderful slogan that says, love isn't love until you give it away. The love in your heart isn't meant there to stay. In the blessings that we have been given too, the Lord has asked us repeatedly to share, and then gives us a promise that the measure that you measure with will be measured back to you, 30, 60, and 100-fold. I had kind of an epiphany back in 2010 of what I decided to do with the rest of my life. I was already at that particular point 66 years of age and could have retired, but didn't want to. I had always, from a little child, had the idea, romantic idea in my mind of being a missionary, but not necessarily in the way that I'm currently doing it now. Pre-pandemic, I was on the road 40, sometimes 42, sometimes 43 or 44 times a year. I've been in all states but one, and I keep waiting for Cross to send me there, which is Hawaii. Hasn't happened yet, probably will not. But I've had the experience of being in many wonderful parishes, as I've found this parish to be as well, under the guidance and religious leadership of your pastor, but also of this community at large that I've had the opportunity to meet now, since I've preached now. This is the third Mass this weekend. But I take me back to 2010. There was a devastating earthquake in Haiti that you may or may not remember. It was January 12th. And within the first 2 days after that earthquake, over 200,000 people had lost their lives. Tens of thousands continued to die afterward because of a curable disease called cholera. But the world wasn't able to reach out at that particular point. It was slow going. But many countries around the world had begun to raise funds. The parish where I was pastor had decided, we were always part of Habitat for Humanity, so we had decided to go and spend some time in Haiti in order to help rebuild houses. I was ushered into an area that had once been an orphanage. I didn't find out until much later, after I had joined Cross Catholic Outreach, that it was a mission that Cross had been supporting. And I was asked if I wouldn't help distribute lunches, or at least be part of the program in this orphanage, where there now was 600 children. So each meal, there were that many to be fed. I was asked to stand in a door frame. The walls were gone, the ceiling was gone, but there was a frame that was kind of the entrance point. And I was to let just a few of the children in order to receive their rations for the day. What was being served was a sticky substance like rice, but something that the children ate with their fingers. But I was warned at the very beginning that there might not be enough food for everyone, and that I was to look for a sign that would simply be, everything is gone. I dreaded that moment standing there and continued to pray that there would be enough to feed those still in line. And there was probably 125 to 150 children left to be fed. But I also noticed that outside the gates of that orphanage, there were many other children standing there with great big leaves or broken bowls, or sometimes just their open hands, hoping as well to receive something to eat. Finally, that sign came. There was nothing left. I could barely turn from the front of that room to the next child in line. And I slowly turned and looked at this young boy with orange-colored hair. And he just looked at me and didn't say a word. And there was a great big crocodile tear forming in the corner of his eye, which slowly ran down his cheek. The rest of the children behind him, knowing what was happening, experiencing it probably many times before, turned around and left. And I, of course, had tears coming down my face, thinking, I came here to help, and now I can't. There's nothing left to feed them. I found out much later that children with orange-colored hair, black children with orange hair, is generally a sign of extreme malnutrition. And as I remembered seeing the face of this child, I knew that I had to do something. When I came back and left my parish, I was in the Cross offices, and they were showing me a video of two individuals, both Americans, a woman from Boston, young, who had given 2 weeks of her vacation time in order to assist in an orphanage in Haiti. And she was talking about the children who were standing outside the gates hoping to be fed. And so there was nothing left to give them. And she was telling the story about what children did. They would literally pick up the clay and moisten it a little and flatten it very thinly between their hands and lay it out in the hot Haitian sun, or later in the day, they would eat these cookies. They had a name for them. They called them bonbon terra, good, good earth, but nothing good about it, nothing that would save their lives. But the children learned it will appease the pain of hunger in their stomachs. And we think we're hungry when we fast during the season of Lent. And how often have we come home from work after a long day and said, boy, am I starving? Do we really understand the significance of what that word means? But there are many in the developing world, in the poorest of the poor countries that we minister to, that understand that on a daily basis. The second part of the video that Cross was showing me was of a young priest. He was from New Jersey, and he'd been given permission to set up an orphanage in Haiti. At the time, it was before the earthquake. He had 40 boys, and now he was the one that was running this orphanage with 600 children as a result of it. And the wonderful things that he had done was to teach them all the things that children need to learn, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But he was also training them in trades, carpentry, making shoes, farming, doing all kinds of things so that they could live without being dependent upon others. He had a rabbit raising enterprise going on. And the rabbits, of course, were great protein, but they also sold them. So they became independent, because Cross always tries to fulfill that adage that if you give a man a fish, he's only going to eat for a day. Teach that man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. It became for me the decision to throw my time and my energy and the talents that I have into being a cross Catholic outreach missionary. For the past 11 years, I've done this work, except for this past year of the pandemic, where I've only been able to go out on 5 or 6 assignments. So I'm always grateful to be back, because I kept thinking during that time of this pandemic how bad things were here, but at least we had stimulus checks. We had food banks. We had food distribution sites. We had many things that assisted us here, including the generosity of so many individuals and philanthropists to help the people of this country. But the poorest of the poor didn't have such a thing. And I kept thinking, not going out, they continue to suffer. And I begged and pleaded with the Lord, please end this scourge on the world so that we can go back out to do the work that we were called to do. Today, we use a word to describe this Sunday as Laetare Sunday. It means rejoice. And you have to question yourself, why do we rejoice during this penitential season of Lent? We rejoice because we are close to Easter joy, close to the time where our catechumens and our candidates receive the Easter sacraments, but a time when we can rest up for the task ahead, like a golfer who rests in between the double round that he's going to, or she is going to experience. But we're doing the same thing today, getting ourselves ready for the challenges of tomorrow, for the work that still needs to be done for all of God's creation. No matter their color, their creed, their religious and sexual preference, whatever it may be, we are all made in the image and likeness of the Lord. And so it is important for us to do what we've been called to do, to measure out the blessings that have been given to us. When you came in today, there was a brochure like this that was given to every one of you. I ask you to please pick them up and open them up to the inside of the brochure for just a few minutes. I'd like to explain what this is all about. Hopefully everyone